Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Internet of Senses podcast. This is our first podcast focused on sound and hearing. My name is Tyler Heaton. I am a sound designer and a spatial technologies researcher with the Spatial Technologies Applied Research and Training Center at Lethbridge College in Alberta, Canada, where I specialize on the implementation of spatial media and technology in immersive experience design. Today, we will be speaking with Jen Cleary about the transformational power of sound and music and its effect on wellness. Jen Cleary is a creative producer, innovator, entrepreneur, and pioneer in the world of music and sound. Through her first company, Beluscious, Jen has set the standard for nightlife performance while providing a safe environment for artists and a venue that elevates the status of women. Now, with Sound Connective, Jen is pushing the boundaries of health and wellness entertainment with an innovative approach to whole body sound immersion. Jen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Very nice meeting you.
We're excited to have you here for our first sound and hearing podcast because of the exciting work that you're doing and because of the history that you have with sound and music and performance all put together. You've had such an amazing career in this space. Can you talk a little bit about your history with music and performance?
Absolutely. It's funny how, at this point in my life, if I look back, I see that everything brought me here. So I started up as a professional dancer at a very young age. One of my dance teacher, when I was about 5 years old, recognized that I had a lot of rhythm and asked my parents if, she could start training me in tap dancing. And I truly believe that that's where it all started. I then danced professionally from the age from about 8 years old on. So dance was always part of my life. When you think about it, dance is a way to express sound and also the way that you can embody music. It's really something that now I recognize is also a form of therapy. So I guess I was lucky enough, and now I'm very grateful that I grew up in that space. And tap for me was a percussion, a way of, I'm not a musician for what the words perhaps says it, which I should be, but still. But my way of expressing myself through music and sound was through my feet with rhythms. So moving forward, a little bit later in life, when I was about 13 years old, I started choreographing as well. And, I never thought that I would be in the entertainment business on a full-time base, but that all changed when I was about 17 and I started getting full-time offers to dance professionally in different spaces between Canada and United States. And very quickly I recognized that, I liked performing, but there was something more to it. I was actually preferring to put people on stage, start having those ideas and choreographing more as well, doing creative direction. So that's when I started, thinking about what could be perhaps this first company that I ended up launching out of Montreal back in the days in 2003, that was Beluscious. As you mentioned, the mission of Beluscious was very specific, still is. It was about helping women in the entertainment business to have more opportunities to shine. As a professional dancer, I was recognizing as a woman also, it was perhaps difficult to get recognized for your talent and to have the opportunity to showcase what you were all about. So for more years than I can remember now, like over 20 years, this company grew internationally. I got a chance to bring it to Las Vegas, where we were part of the movement of dance music. And through that channel, I got to explore even more on how to get inspired by sounds that were perhaps at that time different to me. My ear was mostly trained with jazz music, and I was a Broadway girl and like all of that fun stuff. But the complexity of dance music that sometimes we don't recognize pushed me to understanding how sensorial music can be, and how perhaps the opportunity of getting inspired by beats and by different rhythms can allow us to visually express that also, and can allow people that connect with that music to then also see the music. I wasn't there yet mentally. I would have never talked like that back in the days, but that's what today feels right to whenever that question is asked to me about why is it now that sound takes such a big importance in my life and what has brought me to that, I guess, is really this beautiful, I guess, evolution in the entertainment business, in the sound world, from tap dancing to expressing sound through movement as well. And now recognizing that sound is so much more than what we hear, so much more than, something that perhaps can, yes, help us to be entertained and forget our problems and let go for a minute. But that sound is actually also very powerful and can allow us to heal and unite, obviously, and transform. So a few years ago, as I was still, pushing my first company, Beluscious, doing all those beautiful productions with different artists, I went through a hard journey on a personal level, and I got introduced to sound meditations, but mostly curated by the sounds of tribes or with tribes. And that totally opened another, like, I would say, total different avenue for me as for wanting to dive into that world even more to understand how is it that our ancestors, sorry, um and the tribes all around the world have been using sounds without communicating with one another. Some of those sounds and frequencies are very similar as well. So my interest in understanding the power of sound from, their point of view, from my point of view also, which had been, pretty much recognized more in the entertainment and commercial world, that became kind of a mission of how can we ally both worlds together and try to make and create accessible experiences, or in the case of, being part of the entertainment ecosystem, how can we start learning from the wisdom of our ancestors and implant some of those frequencies that we know can help us at many different levels. Moving forward with that mission that I set up for myself, there was so much more to it as well, because people were asking me questions such as, well, that's a quote unquote holistic, way of treating it, and which wasn't wrong. And I was like, you know what, let's go even deeper. So I started studying in music therapy, and I started understanding, or trying at least to understand to the best of my capacity, what is the science of sound? Like, what is it that is perhaps recognized and that has been used even in medical field, to help people release stress, anxiety, to help people with dementia, to help people heal faster. So suddenly this entire world became even more complex, but in a very fascinating way. And the fourth component, I guess, or element that is very important to me, whenever I push something forward, or that I brainstorm with my team about our products, has been amazing encounters that I had with musicians that are either D-deaf or hard of hearing, and they were challenging me on how to listen. So there's this unbelievable percussionist, virtuoso percussionist, Dame Evelyn Glennie, that I had the opportunity to meet. She's been, touring the world, one of the prime percussionists in the world. She worked with Bjork. She did the Olympics for London, actually, the opening ceremony. She was like the star, and also curating the orchestration with all the percussionists there. And she's, she lost her hearing when she was about 8 years old. And she came up to me one day with this beautiful, simple question: you can hear, but are you listening? And I have to say that changed my life. So there I was doing, for my personal purposes, those meditation with sound, because I'm not someone who can stand still in silence. I need something to, like, distract my mind, but to stay, I would say, like, it's like entertainment is always part of me. So music to me helps me to relax more than staying in silence. So putting all of that knowledge that I was starting to tap on, and the understanding I was getting from how tribes have been using sound to help, and to help us at many levels, how the D-deaf and hard of hearing community have been opening themselves and listening through their entire bodies to receiving sound. And then the medical field, the science of sound, that have also been using music to help patients feel better and go through traumatic events and let go of all of that, and even healing physically. That's where my interest really, like went off the roof. I thought, there has to be a way that we can learn from all of those different techniques, from those different people, from, again, going back in time, as for how important also it was, and it still is, for tribes to connect with the sounds of the earth, of nature, of feeling each other's frequencies. Meanwhile, we're all becoming more and more robotic. We're all wanting to be perhaps a little bit more present now in our lives with our loved ones and with ourselves. So, how can we do that? And every time I would ask myself all those questions, there seems to always be an answer that would arise for: connect with sound, connect with music, learn how to listen, open yourself up. So it's a very long answer to your question, but I guess in a nutshell, like, my and I'm very grateful, like, I guess that teacher when I was 5 probably recognized that I had this sensibility for music and sound. But through my career, having worked with high level artists that are in the musical field, and having had this chance of creating spectacles that are inspired by that music also, and that are all about bringing people together so they can feel together and unite, um, has really allowed me to take a step back right now and try to add those extra ingredients in the magic potion, so that we can shake it all up and, start this movement, basically, that is about raising awareness for the power of sound.
That's amazing. A long answer, yes, but I think a great introduction to a field and an area that I think so many people think they're familiar with, because
Mm,
it's something that I believe we take for granted: our hearing, our sound, our environment. But the science of sound being so fascinating, so rich, so deep, even the terminology, I like that, you talk about frequency, and that's more of like a scientific term. And yet, as you start to understand sound, you start to understand music, you see it, you feel it, you hear it. There are frequencies we don't hear, but we feel.
yes,
And so
yes,
that rhythmic sensibility that comes in through feeling the percussive nature of music or sound. I think it's so important to start there. It's a great place to start, to bring out so many of these terms and these topics. There's lots to unpack, so I'm going to maybe pick a few things here and there, and start with something that, closer to the end of what you were saying, is this scientific nature of sound. How did you discover that? Was it something that surprised you? Was it something that you always felt was there, and then you just filled in the gaps? What was that like for you to discover the science side of sound and music?
it's very interesting because, you know I'm like a kid in a candy store right now, and I really want to keep being that person. I think that there's unbelievable research that has been done on how specific frequencies, specific, again, I was talking about nature, just being outside and receiving the frequencies of the animals, of the plants, of the earth, can literally change our entire well-being. So it has been very, if anything, comforting, if that makes sense, because I, just like a lot of people, and especially without talking about, but with everything we lived, and being isolated also from all of that, I think a lot of us lost track of perhaps who we are, and of our own balance as humans. To know that there's simple solution to this, as simple as going outside and play for a minute in a forest, I feel is fantastic, because it's not about right now selling a product and trying to get people to get their credit card art. No, it's like, it's just about starting the conversation and recognizing that when we wake up in the morning and that we're craving to listen to a specific song, there's a science to that. That's not just because, it's actually because your body, maybe your mind, maybe there's some emotions that you want to get out of your system. You can't verbalize it. You don't even know that it's in there. But somehow by listening to this specific piece of music that is, can be commercial, can be dance music, can be anything, will unlock whatever needs to be unlocked inside of you and allow you to free yourself or to raise your energy and vibe. And even the phenomenon of putting music on repeat, I was just talking about that yesterday with a colleague of mine. I've done that so many times. I drove people nuts by putting on that same song over and over and over. But when we take a minute and we're like, hey, why do I do that? It's like, why do I crave suddenly to eat perhaps, a great salad with, like, tomatoes and cucumbers and everything, and my body is craving something inside this meal that I'm probably lacking on. So the same concept seems to be possible to apply to music. If I'm in need of a specific frequency, I might not know that, but my body is sending me this reference point, and my memory remembers listening to this specific track, and somehow it seems to be my, medicine for the moment, or my solution to fix something or to help myself to move forward in my next, phase throughout my day. The same thing goes with, if people work out and they have a soundscape, some music are just going to give you that kick. So I think for me, the more I dive in, the more I ask questions also, and that I immerse myself into the subject matter, I think the facility to start having discussions with everybody about that subject is what makes me feel good about keep on going. Because if it was only like trap up there with scientific facts that nobody can access, then it's like, okay, great, but but no, we can all get out right now and start implementing techniques, or just recognizing our habits when we listen to music, and recognizing that, hey, if I'm not feeling good today, actually listening to a song that might meet where I'm at emotionally is probably the best way for me to move on or to let go of that emotion. And next thing you know, you might actually want to listen to something that's a little bit happier or more energized, and you're recognizing, hey, I'm actually feeling good right now. It's I kept on saying it's hard to listen to a song, for example, like Don't Worry, Be Happy, if you're crying and it's raining outside and you're like, in pure depression. So there's something to it, again, that applies to all of us without us feeling that we need to study, or like, going on the drain, or it's too complex. No, it's we're already all doing it, but we're not talking about it perhaps as much as we should, especially in moments in time right now when I believe, we need a boost and a big hug as humans, for ourselves, to ourselves, but also as a community. And we need to help each other stay human, stay connected with one another. And music can do that. And, science is proving it at certain level, but there's also our common sense that it plays a lot in it that is important to listen to.
Amazing. So many different directions that we could go.
I know, right?
It's such a fascinating topic. I mean, there's this conversation around the connection between our body and sound,
Hmm.
what our body needs, the way that sound can affect our body, and that I think that naturally leads into conversations around our environment and the way that sound is put into our environment, the way that we experience our environments through sound and audio and music. So that's one area that we can go. Another one that just dawned on me as you were talking about this is, what's been the impact of the commercialization of music on
Oh.
the way that we experience music and sound? If you think about from the tribal and ritual to music in religion, early Christianity music and early Christianity, and the way that music was used, chant, and the way that it influenced architecture, the way that it influenced emotional response and was used as a method to, in effect, control emotion or control thought, to into the romantic period, the Renaissance, and getting into the compositions of Germany and Austria, and the big classical composers that we think about, the Baroque
Mm.
period, and then into the 19th and 20th and into the 21st century, the commercialization, the mass commercialization of music. How has that influenced the way that we experience music, maybe the way that we access or use music and sound for our wellness? So that's another area that we could explore. Yeah, those I think equally fascinating, and maybe we can continue on talking about that connection between the body and sound, and the body and music. And one of the things that I was interested in hearing from your experiences. So you mentioned tap. You started your career as a tap dancer, very percussive, that really physical connection to the rhythmic elements of music, and then adding in rhythmic elements of music. How has that influenced your way of thinking about music and the body?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question because to be honest with you, again, I think I was in a way lucky, or was put in the right situation where somebody recognized that I had that rhythm, or what was needed to um, get trained with into this, and brought into this discipline. um well, form of art more than a discipline, if anything, because that's the one thing I've always loved with tap dancing. I've done all sorts of dance, ballet and jazz, and all different type. Most of them are very rigid. Ballet is very square, like there's one way to do it, and you need a specific body to do it. And here we are trying to fit into this box, and it's hard. Tap is all about self-expression in a way. Yeah, it can also be choreographed and you have to hit the rhythms, but there's um there's a sense of freedom in it that allows you to feel, but also to receive those vibration inside of you. What obviously I didn't know back then, and only since I've been really, you know pushing forward this new venture of mine. Sound waves travel faster in the water than in air. When we go in a nightclub, for example, or a festival, and some of us are the bass the bass maniacs, such as I am. I have a feeling you are too. um I mean, if it wasn't that perhaps it could affect my hearing, you know to put your hands on a speaker, I mean, to me, there's nothing better than that, or sitting on the speaker, or being as close as you can, because you're receiving it. Now, because we're that close, we're getting those frequencies that are literally coming inside our body, because we are made of water, 70% of water. Which means that those frequencies and sound waves get to travel inside of our body, and they get to massage to the deepest possible way our organs. Now, there's still a lot of studies being done in that field. There's a lot of scientific or scientifically approved facts in what I said. Some of them are perhaps a little bit also still looked at or qualify more as beliefs, or you know, but if again right now we were to put a speaker on with good bass and all of us would put our hands on it, I mean, I would be surprised if somebody's like, I can't feel anything. Like I can't, or because you will pulse to it. So that's where there's a need perhaps of cracking that even more, to seeing is there specific frequencies that can really perhaps scientifically be proven to be good to receive at specific moment in time, or for a specific amount of time, so that our body can intake that information and release pain and or trauma and or other components that need to get out of our body, or just reset ourselves. But with everything that I've been looking at and that I've been exploring, um, to be close to and to receive sound waves through your body as close as what it is when we're close to a speaker, for me, it brings me joy and happiness, and it brings me a sense of relaxation that nothing that I've done in the past really can bring that quickly. So there's a lot to it at that level that I think when I was tapping, I didn't recognize it again at that time, but there is a transfer of frequency. You're making your body, vibrate. It's just like people who are playing guitar. Um, I've had a lot of people that I've talked to, and whenever that question was like, "Oh, I get it, but I'm not a clubber or whatever," it's like, okay, well, if you play an instrument, that's another way of perhaps exploring that subject. A lot of people love to play guitar before going to bed. Why is that? Well, the frequencies, the sound that you're creating, they're going the case, they're amplified, then they're hitting your body. Is there something there? Like, you can relax when you play guitar. It's not necessarily expressed that way when people start playing it, but they're gonna automatically associate, I need to relax. I want to go in my little bat cave there and be alone for a minute and do my thing and just bring myself into a peaceful state of mind before going to bed. It's automatic again that afterwards you will receive benefits from it. So for me, it was through tap. I think musicians have their own stories to tell. There's a feeling of bliss that can come with feeling and receiving frequencies, just like hearing your favorite song played. You're automatically gonna have a smile on your face. You're gonna feel good. You can't explain it. I mean, there's a lot of chemical reaction inside our body that are created thanks to that, and it's really based on receiving music through our body as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And absolutely, I'm a bass head.
There you
But
go.
jungle drum and bass, just I love it. And I think what's been so fascinating as I discovered electronic music more, I was always exposed to through my father. So people like Michael Field and Jean-Michel Jarre, and sort of
Yes.
early pioneers in electronic music, really experimenting with frequencies and different instruments in new ways. And then dance music culture through the late 80s and early 90s. I've always found it fascinating that we have these themes within electronic music or dance music, tribal, trance, things that have come out of our history with music, the way that our ancestors used music, and now we're recreating it in a modern era. And there's something about that state that you get into, in a
Mm.
club, in an electronic music performance, where you begin to flow to the music, you begin to feel those frequencies, the freedom. You mentioned the freedom of tap, and that being able to go with the music, and the freedom of so many forms of dance, being able to really feel the music and move your body the way that your body wants to move to it, being rejuvenating, regenerating, having that effect on your emotions, your mood. I've had very strong emotional responses to certain breaks in a song, right? You
Yes.
raise that certain level, and I think that's musicians know that the good DJs, they know that. They bring it up to that point, and they're working everybody up to that point to give that huge emotional release that we need, but we don't seek every day. And I think that's a real challenge of you know, a lot of people's relationship to music is they don't understand how they can use music and sound to create that emotional release, or to create that freedom of emotion and feeling within themselves.
100%. And I love what you said because it shows again how the power of sound is so it's so fascinating how it can reach out to a mass. Like, if you go to a mega club or a festival or even concerts, and to your point, especially like the way DJs are conductors, and why is it that everybody, when that drop is about to come, you can feel it and you're waiting for it, and then it happens and you're like, what? It's like a surprise, but you knew it was going to happen. But physically, emotionally, you're not questioning it. You're allowing yourself to just live it and feel it. um and that, the nightlife culture, I think, has been, unfortunately, there's been a, a black cloud over it, or a gray cloud over it, because of, the consumption and all of that that's attached to it. But, there's nothing more powerful than putting people together on a dance floor that can unite because of their love for this moment in time, to receiving music and to letting this conductor guide them through this journey that will indeed help them to release, thoughts and pain and whatever they have to let go of for a moment in time. I think it's very important to recognize and remember that mission that those sanctuary had. And you were talking about churches, the same thing. Regardless that you're religious or not, I mean, powerful chants like gospel and even, like, mantras. Also mantras, in a way, it's interesting. I had read this beautiful article um that was about comparing a nightclub, actually, to a spiritual experience or ceremony, um with this idea of repetition. A mantra, you're gonna say the same thing over and over and over, and you're getting into this kind of zone where, magic happens. You can get thoughts. You can suddenly, connect with a part of your brain that perhaps you haven't connected for a minute. The same thing can happen with dance music when it's orchestrated, in that sense that it brings you in this state where you're suddenly just like allowing yourself to let go again of all your thoughts, but allowing new information to come in. So there's really a fascinating way to approach and to perhaps rediscover dance music. And there's so much unbelievable music out there right now, and tracks that have been, to your point, showcasing tribal, either spiritual or not, just vibes, or drummings and different instruments from different parts of the world also. And that speaks to us. Like, I'm truly a believer in unlocking the memory in ourselves, as for we're all coming from somewhere, and we are still, the daughters or sons of someone, and the lineage is still part of who we are today. And we contain that information inside of us. We might not know it, we might not think about it, but I truly believe it's inside of us. And I think for me, with tap, maybe it unlocked that also, perhaps at an earlier age. For other people, it's going to be, perhaps just eventually listening to this track that's playing on the radio, and that brings them somewhere. It's like, hey, I feel connected to this to this rhythm. Why is that? Or if you play djembe or drums or percussion, or There's so many beautiful ways, I think, to explore and to see what resonates with us and how far this brings us also, um, on a cerebral but also physical level.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You talk about connecting, using that sound as a connecting, and makes me think sound connective. Your next venture, your next adventure in this space. Can you talk a little bit more about the inspiration for Sound Connective and what your mission and your vision is for Sound Connective?
So Sound Connective is first and foremost a movement. My mission with it is really to have and to start conversations just like the one we're having right now. It's about bringing people who are curious or who have experiences with sound, with connecting with sound beyond our hearing. We're thought that sound goes through our ears, which is not wrong, obviously, but with everything I've been doing, everyone I've been meeting, and all the process I've been on, this journey has opened my eyes to understanding that our body is set up as a giant receptor. Just like the examples we just talked about the bass, about the guitar, about just receiving that information also in nature. So the question that I have is like, what happens if instead of focusing all the attention here when we create soundtracks or when we are putting speakers in a space or that we are in our car, instead of wanting to crank the sound because we want more of it, isn't there ways that we can start understanding more that our entire body can also receive that information, which can allow us to have a healthier practice of hearing sound, which will not bring tinnitus and or other issues that we can have with our hearing, which is an unfortunate reality that it's only getting worse. And there's a lot of issues. You mentioned it not long ago also, but there's the good, but there's the bads also. There's something that always been fascinating to me, and I always gave the example. If you're on the corner of a street, let's say New York City, or in a city where there's a lot of sound, a lot of noise, let's say, not even sound, it's noise at that point. um and there's this construction person that's making tons of noise, there's the honking and all. The chances of you staying there are huge. You're just gonna go with it. If you're at the same corner and something smells super bad, like it's just terrible, most chances are you're gonna move away. It feels to me that we are like accepting and being and compromising a lot as for where we should stand, or perhaps when is it that enough is enough, as for being in a world that is so noisy that it affects us, not just our hearing, but again, going back to the idea that we're made of water and all, we're being activated, like we're being like stressed out, like we're literally taking in all of that nonsense, accepting it, and then thinking that we can just let it go and move out of this situation eventually whenever the time comes, instead of provoking that. So sound pollution is a huge, huge, huge problem. As much as we pay attention, and it's fantastic that we do, but for pollution for, air and water, and there's obviously a lot of other issues that, our world has. But sound pollution somehow is not a topic that I hear a lot about. And I think that it's hurting us so much more than what we think. It's alarming. There's a lot of studies in cities like Jakarta, New York City, even Tokyo, where, women are suddenly so stressed that there's more and more chances that they would perhaps lose their child before giving birth. Like it goes really, really far, that domino effect. How long are we really going to live if we have this constant stress on us, and what type of quality of life is that? But why are we accepting this? So there's been some movements that starting to change some sounds, like in hospitals, for example, in a place where you should be probably at your calmest because you need to heal, those alarms keep going off and it's like loud and it's stressful. Like it brings you like even more on the edge. So I think there's a lot again of conversation to have about all of that. Sound Connective has a lot of mission. One of them is obviously raising awareness for the beautiful and benefits of the power of sound. It's about creating experiences and then implanting ways for people to access in really fun ways, like different installations or assist to live shows or whatsoever that have been thought of with that concept of taking care of our hearing, but also to making sure that the frequencies that we're receiving are extremely well thought of. But there's also, like I say, the other side of the middle, which is we also should start, talking about this taboo, perhaps, or putting more of a spotlight on how can we as a community, as like, as people that are doing our best, going to yoga, doing this, doing that, trying, listening to apps, like we're doing our best every day to trying to bring ourselves into a peaceful set of mind. But meanwhile, next thing you know, there's something right there that's going to happen that's going to sabotage all that beautiful work you've done, and it's out of your control and it's affecting you. So there's a lot to it that obviously, I'm excited to push forward. But the first angle and the first mission is really about starting conversations, having more and more opportunities also to connect with people that are in that space, so we can all start working on how can we find solutions, basically, or at least allow again experiences or different mindset to be implemented into core experiences or live shows or interactive installations, and then blend them in public spaces. It's not just for a specific type of person, it's not just for spiritual, no, it's for everybody. We all like music, we all like sound, we all deserve to be happy and to be in a good space. So that's really the mission that I have behind Sound Connective, which is a pretty big one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is big, but so important. I want to go back to something you said, and there may be some people that are listening that have a better understanding of the science of sound and hearing, and there might be others that are less familiar with it. I mean, essentially, sound is vibration, and our ears are one part of our body that turns that vibration into an electrical signal that our brain can interpret as sounds and frequencies. But our bodies, as you say, they feel that vibration. And in a sense, our bodies are a giant eardrum. They're a giant membrane that can be moved upon by frequencies, and low frequency. We like low frequency because those larger sound waves can move us more than high frequency, which is more, about our ears and maybe vibrating our bones in some cases. And so knowing that and thinking about all of that vibration, all of those frequencies that we may not perceive through our ears, but our bodies are picking up that vibration. They are being affected by those frequencies, those low frequencies, those high frequencies, subsonic, ultrasonic. Even though we don't perceive it through our ears, our bodies do perceive it. And that's what I find so fascinating about what you're doing with Sound Connective is making that awareness of how our bodies are affected by vibration and frequency,
Mm-hmm.
and starting to analyze our environments. I mean, alarms are annoying because they get our attention, which is their purpose, and yet they have that negative effect on somebody who is sitting next to that machine and trying to be calm when their heart rate is dropping and suddenly that alarm goes off.
Right, right.
So you've built some things with Sound Connector, with Let's Make Some Noise. The hum, can you talk a little bit about the hum and how that is moving towards your goal of feeling and listening to sound in a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. The hum has been quite an adventure and a beautiful one, eye-opening, literally. Um, the mission of the hum was to, exactly like I just expressed with the mission of Sound Connective, it's set to be first and foremost a beautiful art installation that people can visually connect with, because that's our number one way right now to, like, get people's attention, but also to bring people in this beautiful peaceful mindset whenever they're going to approach it and be invited to participate. So we have this, again, beautiful like art installation, and inside of it, people are invited basically to sit in it, and people get to receive frequencies of sound that are literally touching your body at different moments in time. Everything is triggered by a soundtrack that we created. You have headphones on. We put an eye mask on also. We invite people to sit on, so I like to call it a tuning machine. And then you go on a journey. It's not a drone, it's not just one sound, it's not, just like a random frequencies that are suddenly, you know, coming together. It's actually it's a real song, but that has a purpose. And the first one we did, brings people into a jungle, and it's fully animated. It's in 3D, also 360 surrounding sound. The way that we've been designing this, so that you really feel immersed inside of the space that we're creating. But again, the real mission we had with it is that as we're hearing, we're listening to this same track through our entire body. The main goal of it was full on entertainment, but we know that it helps people to reset, recharge, relax. Our goal was also to make this extremely accessible, and so I like to call it on the go. It's 5 minutes, so everybody has 5 minutes, or should at least have 5 minutes, to just let go of their, whatever situation they're in, and just embark on this sonic journey that really brings them somewhere unique, that can activate also the power of imagination. That's why we don't want to put visual to this. We really want people to, for the lapse of that experience, to really just do nothing and just let music and sound take over and bring them somewhere where they probably have never been. So it's been a very interesting experience, because we launched it at South by Southwest, um, full of challenges, obviously, also between technology, software, and the track. And it's almost like we have to create this like a recipe also, so we make sure that whatever people are receiving will not, just like we talked about, trigger them in the wrong way. Unlike a so-called massage chair, we're playing with frequencies of sound here and with music. So it's a totally different ball game, the way that such experience should be curated. um, and the main goal with the hum, my dream is, and what I've been pushing right now with different partners at different levels, is to bring, so I like to call it the hum lounge, where a new concept that allows people to just come in, have a good time, do the experience. Then there's a beautiful little setup that allows people to talk about their experience, to explore even more with different, in different ways, with how they can connect with sound and what does that mean. And we're also working on a development, obviously, of an app where people get to follow up also afterwards. So the idea is to create a community also. Every time people get to experience in our different location the hum, it's always going to be different. There's always going to be a sensibility also to the culture of the land where we're set up, so that it gives us an opportunity also to go dig and to really bring people like on a journey that is different, but that also pays tribute to, you know, the ancestral tribes that have perhaps inhabited this land, and or perhaps culturally also have a sound that's very particular to that specific city where we would be implanted. So there's a lot to it. It's definitely been like I said, a beautiful journey that allowed me to talk to people I never thought I would even talk to. So I'm very, very pleased about that, because it's only helping the process to be looked like as being an important experience to implant into our world. But also, again, what's really important to me is that everybody feels invited and that this is for them. It doesn't, you really do not need to be inclined in more of the spiritual world and or be super adept of like sound and understand all the technique. It's really just about letting go and letting it do it what it has to do. And then, you know, we love to ask people how they feel afterwards, and it's unbelievable where some people go. Like, not a jealous person, but sometimes I am when they tell me what happened to them, because it's very, very powerful. It's like, what, you feel how you did what? It's very, very magical. There's something I can't, I'll be honest, there's something I can't put my finger on that happens when you do it. And I'm at the point where even with my words I can't give it justice. It's really, you know, to the point where it's like, well, gotta try it, you know. So my mission right now has been to, as much as I can, you know, have people that can make a difference, that can bring it and help with the deployment, to come to try it out. And you know, we're having the discussions and hoping that by, you know, early next year, if not even by the end of this year, we're gonna have physical location where people can start coming and experience it.
That's very exciting, because I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that hear this and they're like, I want that experience. I want
I
to
know.
see what that's like. Because as you say, you can't describe it in words. It's one of those
Yeah.
things that you have to feel it. And so there's a couple of things that I'd like to explore there. So going back to some comments you made earlier about meeting people in different communities that are
Mm.
deaf or hearing impaired, who are still making music and using sound in that way, that idea of feeling the sound, um, how has that influenced, or what role has that played in this conversation that you're bringing forward with Sound Connective, and with something like the hum, that for the non-hearing community, or for those who don't hear the same, how is that coming together?
uh, it's everything. I mean, for me, at my core as a human, and also as the founder of, you know, this company, um I think if I hadn't met Dame Evelyn Glennie, I'm not sure that we would be talking today. um I think that the celebration of how, you know, sound can be received through the body, not the celebration, but I would mean, I think we never took a moment to really understand what it means to connect properly with sound through our entire body. And you know, musicians or non-musician in the DDF hard of hearing community, um to me, have been pioneers in leveraging how we should connect with the multi dimensions of sound. We have so much to learn, and I feel extremely grateful that, you know, I was received with open arms, you know, by specific people in the community and beyond. And I'm looking forward to even wanting more and more of that input as we keep building, as we keep developing other products as well. And it goes for everyone. Like, I think this is definitely the definition of a product and a mission where it's not about checking the box. It's it. It's everybody, it's every culture, it's every possible shape, form, uh sexual orientation. I mean, you name it. Like, it's really about being human, you know. As humans, we have different ways of connecting with sound. and let's figure out all together all those ways that should be implanted into our ecosystem so that we can benefit from it on daily basis, and that speaks a language that obviously taps on everybody. That is the product. So there's not a product that is different for a specific type of human. Everybody gets to be embedded into this same, target audience. And that is really, it's not that it's important, it's that the project, the company, and the hum and all the other beautiful product we're hoping to push to the market, there's no chance of success if it's done in any other ways.
Yeah, yeah. So much of the commercial audio world has been around stereo, 5.1, 7.1, Atmos, these hearing based formats, these ways of encoding sound and creating, spatialization, 3D sound. To me, it sounds like you're on the verge of a new format, of a new way of encoding sound and audio that transcends or sets a new paradigm for the music and sound experience. And that's really exciting, this idea that now it's not about just what our ears are doing. It's this new format, it's this new way of working with this. What was the experience like composing that first piece for the hum and crafting that experience?
Oh, I mean, wow, it was the word intense has to be said. See, the hum came from a first idea of creating a space that would have about 15 different installations that have different purposes to help us play, learn, experience, connect with sound. I I was flying very high with this concept, thinking, yeah, let's go, let's race, let's do this, and I got the chance to be part of a couple of hub and had unbelievable, guardian angels at this point, mentors and ambassadors that came along and kind of shook me up a little bit and challenged me to, okay, this is awesome, good job, do one. And I was like, well, no, it's everything. And they're like, yeah, great job again, cool, do one. And when I decided to do the one, I'm somebody per default, I guess, who's used to producing very quickly. I worked a lot in Vegas, and this is the city where you get a phone call at midnight and the show's tomorrow, so you don't have time to explore that much. So as much as I was thinking about the hum being part of this world, this beautiful sound world we're creating, when I was being challenged, I first went, well, what is it? Which one do I pick? The hum seemed to be the one that, in a way, combined the most ideas in the simplest way to translate what I was after, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It made sense to me to say, here's a beautiful installation. Please come. You're welcome to sit on it, put headphones on, eye mask, listen with your body. So that people could listen to that and understand in their own way, obviously, but that made sense with a little drawing of what it could be. The next step from deciding that that was it was, great, we need to launch this somewhere that's going to have an impact and that will allow us to test it and get real feedback. So at that time we were still in that, COVID, no COVID, God knows what's happening with the world. My gut was telling me we had to launch at South by Southwest for X reason, because I had never been, but I knew about it. It felt right that the eclectic nature of South by Southwest would be the right type of audience where this should be brought to. So I was on the way to see if they were even gonna have South by Southwest. So that got confirmed by January. And then I had from January till March to just put the key in the engine and say, we're doing this. So I think, thank God, with, my background and all, I had met so many people that, there was one specific collaborator I wanted to bring on board that I thought could be a good person to play ping pong with. There had been still development at high level of what this could be and do, but again, it was more of a drawing than a CAD, and there was no tech thought of. So the long story short is that in 5 weeks, including 2 where I got I got inflammation of the brain thanks to COVID, we ended up pushing this through. I remember one of my, colleague was, she had worked with Disney at high level as a producer and all. She's like, okay, well, we need a shop. We need to create this beautiful installation. And I think we called 50 and everybody was like, you guys are crazy. Like, there's no time. Like, we would need a minimum of 6 to maybe 9 months to do this. We need to, like, do some R&D also on the side. We need this and that and that. So we couldn't find a shop to help us create it. The technology, to me, I'm as funny as it is, I'm the type of person, if there's 2 remote controls to open a TV, I panic. So I can explain what my vision is, but I was definitely not going to be the one who was going to go out and start wiring this. So I mean, I don't know, there was a lot of miracles that just happened, I guess. We were able to push it through. We found this one shop that just went with it, but even they couldn't confirm if it was going to get on time or not. Inserting everything with the technology, creating the track, the storyline of the track was important to me as well. I really wanted this to be there's a beginning, there's an emotional arc, and there's an end. And at the end, there's a payoff. What is it? So we juggled a lot. We did a lot of tests. I learned that one can overdose on frequencies as I was testing a lot of ideas. At least I survived, so that's a good news.
Yeah.
You don't die from it. But there was a lot of we just went full out, literally full out. And once we presented it at South by Southwest, I ended up being like, kind of a vegetable, looking at people passing through. And thank God I had this unbelievable team that even my team, when we all put people together, they're like, okay, so what do we do? I was like, we just do it. We just figure it out as we, we're welcoming the guests. We're doing the best possible experience as possible. The good news is that we all come from entertainment. So this curation of how to bring people, how to make them feel, I knew that I was, 100% covered by the awesome team that I had. But then still, was the experience going to be well received or not, was the real question. And it blew our mind. Like, it was really unbelievable how far it brought people, how even in the context of having those neon lights from a trade show on it, and the noise of all the trade show and people going around, people were still able to get into their world and to live this. And there was beautiful encounter, that came along thanks to that, where, I mean, knowing what I know, would I go back and do it again? Probably, because I know how important it was, but it was probably one of the hardest thing I ever done in my life. Obviously, it let me take that back. It was the hardest thing I ever done in my life. And I've been in situations where I thought, like, this is impossible. Like, how are we going to move forward? So it's just the will, when they say there's a will, there's a way. And then I believe that, even when I produce show, I always say at one point, there's so much you can do, and you have to kind of back up and just trust that something will help or make this work. And thank God the calling was received because it worked.
Now that's an incredible story. I think that I mean, on so many different levels. It's an inspirational story of persevering and pushing through
Mm.
in that seemingly impossible situation, but an incredible story of bringing a concept to actuality, to actuating on an idea. It sounds like that that the hum, this first version of it, is something that really connects to that goal, that mission of Sound Connective, and being a device, as a device, I guess, as a device and as an experience, because it feels like it's both of these things that can be used to help people understand that effect of sound in a way. Have you talked to people in the science community, in other communities, about, using something like the hum to help them better understand the effect of sound on the body?
I mean, it's all part of, the mission we have. Like every good startup and every good product, as much as I wish I could go faster, there's a step by step that I keep being reminded every time I try to skip one, that I have to take a step back and honor it and be patient. Uh very, very hard. But to your point, I truly believe that, and it would be a beautiful, opportunity, I think, to work with the concept of the hum and beyond. There's always been this, I would say, this calling to bring the science community and to bring, even different type of programs in universities, and even in music therapy, and that idea again of the round the table, and to push forward a better understanding of the connection through haptic devices, and or perhaps a new type of device, as we know, or well, not everyone, but I didn't know, now I know. But obviously, like transducers, they weren't necessarily thought of to put close to the body. Like, that's not really the goal. So the machinery and the tools that exist, are not necessarily on point yet, because the need of doing what we're talking about was never there. So I see a beautiful opportunity of bringing, to market products that are perhaps even easier than, our installation, because our installation is really, it's not meant to sell to, independent people to have in their house. Like, this comes with the whole concept, because I am a big advocate for the full experience. Like, I truly believe that the hum experience starts before and is also after. And there's only a way to curate that if we are there with you to experience it. And it's also, I think people who do it feel that also. They feel this human connection, somebody they can laugh with after or talk to. And a lot of people want to talk after. It opens themselves up. And it's nice to know that there's somebody there that wants to really listen to them. That's all part of the concept too. But with that in mind, I see there's already a list that I started of how far can I push this, or think I can push this, but then knowing that there's people that are in that field that could push it even further. I mean, that's just a no-brainer that we have to go there. There's a lot to it. There's research, there's data, there's the behavior of people pre-post, after doing it once, after doing it twice, after doing all of that, obviously will come into factor also as we keep developing experiences and want to understand even more, the effects that it has on people beyond also this installation and this first experience.
Yeah, incredible. It sounds like a very bright future for this project, and moving beyond and into future projects. I want to talk a little bit about sort of the future of sound, the future of hearable sound. We're hearing about this innovative work that you've been doing with full body listening, with immersive sound and haptics. We're in a world where in the last 10 years we've seen changes to the way that we experience music with hearables and wearables, and now products out there that are haptic devices. A lot of the work that I do is in virtual reality and immersive experience, and how does that blend in, 360-degree sound. What do you see on the horizon for sound and music? Not just even from a technological standpoint, but just sort of in terms of experience. You produce, you are, an entertainer. What do you see in the future, next 5 years?
I mean, what I hope to see is more people like us, like you, more opportunities such as this one to invite people to connect and to talk about it, because that will create the rippling effect that is needed to start implementing new type of perhaps sound systems for creators to start thinking of sound not as an after add-on, but as a primary subject to treat. There's been so many people I've talked to, like all those awesome, audio engineer and editors and everything. And it's like, if only I was given that chance, only once, just give it one to me. And it's like, but why not? I think we've been treating visual first, which is great, and it served us. But I also feel there's an overstimulation right now going on. I mean, there's this, sound can really bring us somewhere deep, and somewhere that in really little time can, allow us to reset and to relax. And I keep bringing the relaxation because we're all super anxious. And I think as if the entire world can just take it down a notch, thanks to sound experiences that are pretty much everywhere. When you go to your grocery store, when you go, to an hotel or whatever, like the sound, there's always sound. So what is it? What are those sounds or frequencies or tracks that we can create that can allow people, as soon as they step into a space, to go like, whew? Because I believe it is possible. I truly, truly believe it's possible. And then in the entertainment business, like you said it, and I think there's amazing technology out there. Is it used to the benefit of serving beyond the entertainment? And now that we think that we could go beyond it, again, I don't have all the answers to it, but I'm definitely curious about it. And I've been having amazing talks with other people that seem to be in that same, in that same alignment. So now that we know that, what can we do? Because entertainment to me is the number one way to bring people together by itself. If you make people laugh, if you make people even cry, if you bring beautiful visual and whatsoever, like it again, it brings people somewhere different. So we're all, entertainment has always been very important in that, in self-development and creativity and openness and all, and sharing with the ones we love, like different experiences, or even meeting people we've never met through it. So how can sound help that at a level that goes, again, beyond scratching the surface? I think that's where I would hope that we could be, that it's maybe less about technology, and I might get nasty calls after that one, but maybe a little bit more about content. That would be it's my call to action, because I think on the technology side of things, there's so much awesome tools out there, but the purpose of them maybe can be rethought of, or maybe there's other ways to recycle them so that they can offer something that can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that sentiment of content being something that needs to be brought up, something that's needs to be a bigger part of the conversation than just the technology on its own is so important. It's something that it's hard to have that conversation when so much of what we see is, buy this, here's this new product on the market, here are these things, and and it's not, oh, well, what are we doing with that? And I think that there are
Right.
some things that have been happening in the past few years. I think that you know, the hearables, the wearables, the battle for our ears between the different companies with their wireless headphones has been quite fascinating to watch. And then something like Apple and the spatial sound coming in, where it's about the content and now it's about the artist and the experience, not just about the technology on its own, is such an important thing to be aware of and for people to recognize. And I think what you're doing is really a part of that same vein. It's this connection between what the technology can do, but the experience that we can have with the technology, not just about the technology on its own. And that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's so many beautiful opportunities out there, and I think the more, again, I'll keep repeating that. I mean, I think I've said it 50 times up to now, but I really think it's about, I think there was a moment in time where even me with what I was doing in life and whatsoever, you feel like you have to hold on tight to it. It's like, oh, somebody's going to steal this or they're going to do that and that. And what's been so liberating for me with this new venture, it's that it's kind of the opposite effect. Of course, I had a mama bear moment with the hum where you're like, everybody's going to copy it. But I'm at the point where it's like, no, nobody can copy that because that is, it exists. It's its own thing. However, let's keep encouraging people to get inspired by and to bring their own thought process into this and to do research also and to educate to the best of their capacity, be educated enough so that we're not harming people with it. That's really the only thing that kind of scares me a little bit with everything that's coming out on the market and the way perhaps sometimes people are, seeing the new wave and, oh, now it's sound, let's go, we're all going to do sound. But what, 1 minute, it reminds me back in the days when, the nightlife scene exploded, like in Vegas, and dance music was picking up, and then suddenly you would have people that had never even been part of that that world are like, I want to be in, and you're like, well, you had to be here 10 years ago too, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it's not welcoming everybody, but I think it's more a matter of being humble with it and recognizing that this is indeed something that can be extremely positive and beautiful, but it has to be really done properly. Like, even when you consume something, or if you do those experiences and, on YouTube or different app, like, are they little fine lines also to read of the aftermaths or the side effects that this can do? Because it's I believe it's not for everybody. I think we need to start being a little bit more responsible as creators of those experiences, and owning that if I'm putting something online that everybody can access, better be sure that there's not somebody who's going to be triggered in the wrong way here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very wise, and something so important to think about, as creators, as content creators, as technologists, to be aware of that effect. And I couldn't agree more, with technology, and everybody just wanted to jump on board with it. It's like, okay, we're all going to get in the game. We're all going
Yeah,
to
exactly. Let's
do
go.
this.
Everybody,
You
right.
see, 1,000 half-baked clones of something that's good and beautiful and successful, and then 1,000 things that are little pieces of it but not quite right, and don't, they
Yeah.
just want to play off that popularity. And so certainly there's that danger as we push more into the sound and audio space. Yeah, I think that's a great place to start to wrap up this conversation. I think, I'm so fascinated by what you're doing with multidimensional sound, and inviting a multidisciplinary community to be a part of it. For people that want to know more about Sound Connective and want to be connected and collaborate, what
Yes.
would you say? Who should they reach out to? How should they reach out?
I mean, soundconnective.com, which is an official website, just that, recaps a little bit what we've been talking about. right there, there's like a, an email address where people can connect with us. And it is a beautiful opportunity right now, I guess, through this podcast to really send out a warm invitation to everyone that either feels a calling, regardless that it's to collaborate or to inquire, or that perhaps has lived, things with sound, or and would like to see how, sound can help them. We're more than happy to, get into conversations and to our best of our knowledge, at least, like, point people in directions if ever there's any interest in diving in more. And for the purpose of the company, obviously, and for the there's obviously, like I was saying, we are in chats right now with a couple of potential partner, which is very exciting. But we're also all ears to different options as well, because the goal is to deploy and to be in as many cities and in any like possible like communal spaces as possible, so that people can really benefit from it, even with you know different type of communities that goes from the schooling system to hospitality, to the transport industry as well. Those are three big ones that we're looking at right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jen, for being a part of this podcast, this first podcast with Internet of
Of
Senses
course.
Institute. Thank you for your inspirational work, for all the things that you're doing with Luscious, with Sound Connective. I so look forward to seeing more of what you're doing,
Yes.
and seeing the progress of these ideas and these concepts, and the positive impact that they will have on the way that we live, and our wellness and our health. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks to you. Really appreciate it.